Hey everyone, it is Cristina and Susan for another Trustworthy live episode. If you're new to Trustworthy, it's important for you to know that our mission is to build trust in the world, one person and one organization at a time. We have spent a lot of time interviewing leaders about the role of trust, discussing this with teams, and understanding how people can start to build trust and move throughout their personal and professional lives with more trust. And so we're so excited for you to be here with us today. We have a very special guest. But right before we bring him to the stage, I wanted to let you know that we are live on YouTube. We would love to see your engagement on YouTube. If you have questions, pop them in the chat on YouTube. Anything related to trust and AI, we will do our best to kind of pull them into the conversation and have a bit of a Q&A session at the end. But if we don't get to your questions, it's okay. Because if we don't get to your questions, we are just going to use those questions to help us prepare for a part 2 with Ram. So without further ado, today we're joined by someone who is at the forefront of the AI revolution, and one of the few voices that are reminding us that being human is our greatest advantage. Ram Srinivasan is a managing director and global AI adoption and future of work advisory leader at JLL, a company that I love. He's a global consultant to Fortune 500s, an MIT alum, and has 15-time MIT certified expert in everything from AI, machine learning, to immersive tech and no-code innovation. His books, The Conscious Machine and the upcoming The Exponential Human, are rewriting the rules on human AI collaboration. But Ram isn't just a technologist. He's a translator between tech and trust. His work challenges us to think and to ask, in a world of intelligence abundance, what does it really mean to be authentic? What does it really mean to be human and to be trustworthy? So we're going to welcome Ram to the stage. Hi, Ram.
Hey, Christina. Hey, Susan. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for the kind introduction, Christina. Was that written by ChatGPT? I hope not.
I would say we had a little bit of help by GPT, but because you've got such a huge, incredible, experienced bio, we thought, how are we going to make this as succinct but as generous as possible with our words?
And I think that is a hilarious or interesting, I thought it was kind of funny question when we're talking about trust. And the first thing you asked was that written by ChatGPT? so isn't that our world today? Is it from us? Is it from, is it from our heart? Is it from our own brains? Is it from AI? Where is it all coming from? Because we have so many different ways to put data and information together these days.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I also know that it's not written by ChatGPT because the words realm, dwell, and those kind of words did not appear in Christina's introduction. So thank you for that.
That wasn't another version, don't worry. We stripped those
Yeah,
words out.
I was going to say we knew that you would check for the words. No, but it does say something like, if you do use ChatGPT, how do you personalize it and make it yours and just take the information and still have it, be authentic to who you are?
Yes. Awesome.
So let's just jump right in, because we've had a lot of interest online across LinkedIn, across YouTube. And before we get into kind of our key questions around trust and a little bit more around AI, can you tell us briefly about yourself and the role that trust has played in getting you where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, interesting question, Christina, and I think it's probably a difficult question to start with. And where I'll take this is, as opposed to speaking about myself, I want to talk about this topic, the idea of trust and what it means for us. I know we were briefly chatting before we went live, and from my perspective, trust depends on context. In some contexts, you may need more to create trust. In some contexts, you need nothing, and trust exists. So, for example, if we think corporate culture, inside a corporation, trust may mean reliability, it may mean predictability, It might mean the confidence that your counterparty will fulfill commitments, will meet obligations, will retain confidentiality, those kind of things. So culture from a corporate perspective, that dictates trust. Within society, trust allows strangers to collaborate, to cooperate. It's built through consistent behavior over time. Um, it's also based on shared mutual vulnerability. So it's an interesting phenomenon when we think from a society perspective. Then if we go deeper, and I love philosophy. I'm beyond an armchair philosopher at this stage. So if we think philosophy and mysticism, then trust takes on a whole new realm. It's trust in the natural order of things. It's trust in interconnectedness. It's trust in accepting life's flow without resistance, and so on and so forth. If you ask an athlete will say trust in the process. And it's been said that AI is influencing every aspect of life. So if you bring all of those things together, that's what trust means in the context of AI. Trust then means reliability, predictability in terms of outcome. Trust means confidentiality, privacy in the context of AI. Trust means that trust is that bridge between human intention and machine outcome. And all of these things will come together when whether it's technical safeguards or closing the gap between expectation and uncertainty. And those are common threads that we will pull on. So I know long-winded way of saying this is a huge area of focus for me, and I look at trust in the context of AI from all of these lenses, because it's not one, it's all of them combined that will allow us to trust these systems.
So what I love about that, and I think so many people are so nervous about AI and what's it going to do to our culture and our deliverables and our people. And yet, when I listened to that description, and I thought about it when we were backstage talking a little bit as well, when we have over the last 2 years described the definition of trust, we've used reliability, great communication, vulnerability, honesty, deliver as promised. A lot of the things that you just mentioned as based on context is kind of still the same kind of list of things that make people trust or distrust. And so maybe it's not that scary. Maybe it's really just using it or thinking about it as the foundation of what trust is, no matter what. In this new world and in this, as everything around us changes, maybe some of that stuff remains foundational.
Yeah. Also, what's interesting, Susan, is as trust level goes up, fear levels reduce, and adoption goes through the roof. So to your point of where does that trust come from, and does it already my view is that all of us, we think that we operate in the world using our cognitive processes, our frontal lobe. Cognition, logical thinking, critical reasoning is how we operate. But the truth is that we operate based on our limbic system. The fear, flight, or flight response is what dictates most of our actions. So when we encounter things that we don't understand, which are new in our environment, our limbic response is one of fear. And this is not to say that it's not a useful response. It's very useful if you're on the savannah and the rustling in the bushes is a saber-toothed tiger, and if you don't move, then you're saber-toothed lunch. Whereas right now, what you have is the power of 1,000 PhDs in your pocket. And if you fear that, the risk is that someone else uses the 1,000 PhDs in their pocket and they vastly outperform you. This is the risk. So, the recent survey from KPMG actually shows that as the trust levels have gone up, the adoption rates have gone higher. And this is literally every survey, every project that we are working on at JLL, we find this. AI adoption rates go higher as trust levels increase.
Trust levels between whom? Is it self-confidence and trusting yourself? Is it trust of the other? Is it trust of your organization, trust of the technology? Tell us a little bit more about that.
I would say all of the above. Firstly, we've got to understand that this is not about replacing human beings. AI is not about replacing human beings. It's about augmenting performance. So long as that's made clear, and those who are going to get impacted by AI in their day-to-day work are involved in the journey and they can see value in participation, they will trust that system, that process, leadership, and corporate outcome. There's a amazing survey from Writer AI published about a week or so back, which shows that actually AI implementation is tearing companies apart. Um, Younger generations, Gen Z audiences are actually actively sabotaging AI projects
Wow.
because they don't trust the outcome, and they fear that this is about replacement. Fundamentally, it is not. And at JLL, we've said this, that AI is being used to augment our workforce, and we are seeing the outcome. So long
Yeah.
as you have involvement there, it allows people to see how these systems will influence their jobs. So first and foremost that. Secondly, I would say that there needs to be some participatory benefit, as in, it's all good to say that I'm part of the process and I'm going to help implement AI and all of those things, but how do I benefit personally? What's that productivity dividend? If I'm increasing ROI for the organization through AI implementation, how do I benefit? So that's what's in it for me part always comes in. Transparency also is a third element that I would advocate for. Higher the level of transparency and more clarity with which people can see how these systems are being used and how they will be used in the future. Higher the level of trust. And if you take those three, combine it with great leadership. One of my former leaders at JLL and one of my mentors, Sundar Nagarajan, he would say that leaders can make your coffee taste better or bitter. And this is very true when it comes for AI and anything AI adoption related as well. If you
Wow.
if your leader brings you into the implementation cycle, it makes your life so much easier. So, I mean, all of the above.
I know that you had written on LinkedIn that business moves at the speed of trust. And we know we're in a time in history at the moment where there is just rapid business organizational transformation. And where there is not, right, where there might be fear, there's a lot of organizations that are pausing their initiatives, pausing and taking a bit of a wait and see approach. Even when you're pausing, how can you build trust?
I think very, very interesting and deep question. So the way I would look at this, Christina, is consider that right now speed is your only moat. And this is not a sentiment that I have come up with. This is Arvind Srinivas at Perplexity, CEO, founder of Perplexity. We had the opportunity to meet and interact with Arvind Srinivas, and he said this, that Perplexity's business model is built on this motto that speed is your only moat, and you've got to out innovate your competition. We live in that world now where speed is the currency of business. If speed is the currency of business, and you don't have trust, you can't act with speed. So you need trust fundamentally for your
Yeah.
business to operate at speed. It's like, imagine that you're on a freeway driving at 100 miles per hour and you don't trust your car to brake. Will you drive at 100 miles per hour? Likely no.
Mm-mm.
And what will happen is everyone else who can trust their cars to drive at 100 miles per hour will be zooming past you.
Yeah.
And in that freeway highway situation, if you're paralyzed by that fear, if you're paralyzed by lack of trust, if you're paralyzed by a false sense of caution, then you get outcompeted in today's world. So the risk of not creating a trusted work environment is that you get outcompeted and you kind of don't exist anymore. 50% of the Fortune 500 companies from the year 2000 don't exist today. And many of them, I would say, don't exist because of this very reason, that they thought .com's a bubble, but we are all on the internet right now.
So I know when leaders, I know not leaders, but humans don't really know what to do, and using your word, get paralyzed. And because they don't know how to get their employees on board. They don't know how to, I think you said, they have to be transparent and say, and really create the value proposition for the people they're working with so they know what's in it for them. And they have to work fast. You work with all the Fortune 100, 500 companies. Are leaders prepared for this moment? And what are you experiencing or seeing? And how do we help leaders go from being paralyzed and go from being so fear-based in how to handle all this or manage it to a point where they actually can help their organizations move forward?
Yeah, it's a fascinating time to be a leader right now. There is no playbook. So it's a very interesting time. You've got to rely on your intuition and your value system. One of the leaders I worked with very closely, former chairman CEO of JLL India, Anuj Puri, he would often say values over value,
Mm.
and those values are what create the foundation for great leadership, and they stand the test of time. So agnostic of where you are today, certain things won't change. Like Jeff Bezos at Amazon once said that I don't know what will happen in 10 years, but I'm certain that no customer comes to me saying, "Can you deliver this slower and make it costlier?" Faster, cheaper will remain true. So build business models around that. So what will remain true is an exploration that leaders will need to do. I would also say that it's a time of great learning and relearning. So one of the examples I heard this from Peter Diamandis, Singularity University fame on the Abundance 360 stage. He talked about exponential mindset, and it's a great example. So imagine that you took 30 linear steps. You're about 30 feet away. If you took 30 exponential steps, first step 1 foot, second step 2 feet, third step 4, then 8, then 16, how far do you think you're at the end of 30 steps? And most people in their wildest imaginations will say, millions of feet or something like this. You're actually 26 times around the earth. You've encircled the earth 26 times at the end
Wow.
of 30 exponential steps. Why am I bringing this up in the context of leadership is because we today live in exponential times. My question to every leader is, are you living in exponential times with a linear mindset?
Amazing. I feel like we need to let that settle in, because I feel like that's a very, very strong question. And I'm very curious to see what people's reactions are going to be to that question. Okay. Wow. You've just blown my mind. Well, I think because of that, it's so much more important to link trust or being trustworthy with any endeavor that you're taking. Whatever those steps are, whether it is AI adoption or whatever that is, having that trust worthy values, or have it being known as being trustworthy, is going to lead to more people wanting to take those steps with you. So I'm curious, you created Rambot. That's your digital twin. It speaks 40 languages. I feel like you're taking so many exponential steps in Rambot. Trust in communication is not just about the language. It's about the nuance and the tone and the emotion. So can we kind of also start to unpack a little bit around how can AI take those exponential steps with you to truly capture some of those elements that make communication trustworthy?
Yeah, great question. And if we bifurcate the idea of trust in the context of your question, Christina, into two parts: cognitive trust and emotional trust. So when you say, for example, you encounter Rambot online, and you literally can't tell at this point of time if it is actually Rambot or Ram, then the emotional part of you is responding to that. And you're saying, hey, I don't know if, can I trust this? This is just a bot. Can I trust this bot? And what kind of questions can I ask this bot? And by the way, is this conversation being recorded? What is this bot thinking in the background? How many such conversations exist? What does it know about me? And so on and so forth. These are all emotional responses. And then the cognitive layer kind of kicks in post that, after you've overcome the emotional element. The cognitive layer of trust is around privacy, confidentiality, corporate content leakage, and those kind of things. What can I say to this thing that does not violate or breach NDAs or confidentiality agreements that I've signed? What data is leaking, and all of that. So all of that's kind of a cognitive layer of trust. Both of those need to act in parallel when it comes to these systems. There's a there's a fantastic equation called the trust equation. I'm sure audience that's tuning into the Trustworthy podcast, I'm sure folks know about the trust equation. There are three components in the numerator. There's one component in the denominator. It's set up as a fraction, right? The numerator is credibility, reliability, intimacy. Credibility being, do you know what you're talking about? Are you an expert? Do you show up every time? Reliability. How well do you know me? Intimacy. Those things, the more you have of it, the better. All of that is online right now. You can find enough information about people's credibility, reliability, intimacy online. What you may or may not be able to find is the denominator, which is the self orientation. The more you have of it, the worse off you are. So I think as we go forwards, that self orientation piece or lack thereof will need to be magnified. And in the context of AI, future, digital, this may mean authenticity. It may mean your personal experience in certain context. That information does not exist online. So how do you magnify that? That becomes ultra powerful as we go through this. There's an amazing experiment, if you have heard of it, in a high school classroom. Um, 30 students are in the classroom. There are balloons with names written on it. Each of the students' names, the balloons are kind of randomly distributed. The students are now asked to go and find the balloon with their name on it. It takes about 5 or 10 minutes, and none of them has found their balloons, or very few have. Then they change the experiment where they say, if you find any balloon with any name, just find the person whose name is on it and give it to them. And now suddenly in less than 30 seconds, everybody has found their balloon. So what does this, why am I saying this? The reason I'm giving this example is because if you can spread the joy, if you can find ways to share, if you can find ways to educate, if you can find ways to give more than you get, in the context of today's new world, your self-orientation is lower and it can be seen. And once it's seen, you can magnify, amplify yourself as well. So I think those elements will need to play together as we go forwards.
So a lot of in our trustworthy model, Chris and I have a model, we really talk about it starts with self-confidence and trusting yourself in order to navigate. Talk a little bit about when I'm thinking about finding the balloons and sharing it in the human connection, talk about what do each of, and having to show up and bring our unique, individual, authentic self to the table, because that's the piece that's not online right now. How do you find the self-confidence that people have to do that? And I think we talked a little bit about it earlier. Do extroverts have the advantage? Do introverts have the advantage? Do they both have different advantages? Like, talk a little bit about what it takes to go inside yourself and really build that muscle in order to navigate these times, in order to trust.
I like the framing of the question, Susan, in the sense that confidence is not something external, it's internal. And you simply need to find it within yourself. It exists. And I don't think, there's this whole notion of fake it till you make it. I'm not a subscriber to that idea. There is some neurological truth to that concept that, if you play it out and if you see it happen through your own physicality and mental function, then it makes it real for yourself. However, this is very different. This what the question that you're asking is trust and belief in yourself,
Mhm.
and I think this is something that you can build through repetition. I think it's a muscle, like you said, but it's not one that has atrophied. It is simply one that has not been developed. And the more we play with it, the more we exercise it, the stronger it becomes. And I think it's a valuable muscle to develop in today's day and age. Um, there are there are loud voices, and then there are valuable voices. So the valuable voices need to have equal, if not higher, decibel levels. So I think everyone should have confidence in themselves to express.
Yeah.
And the cool part is that, speaking of AI can help you be that can help you magnify your own voice exponentially. Like if we there's a fantastic study published through BCG and Harvard Business School, where they evaluated real world consultants working on real world examples. 700 consultants working without AI and with AI, split into control groups. The consultants who did not work with AI were outperformed by consultants who worked with AI. So, obviously the
Wow.
AI group was much better, 43% better output.
Wow.
Great outcome. But for me, the most valuable piece of information in that study was that the 700 consultants are not all equal. Some of them are better performers, some of them are lower performers. The lower performers improve their output to match the higher performers. So AI became a leveler of the playing field. And I see this as the most valuable outcome of this AI revolution that we are seeing.
So I'd like to kind of expand, I guess, laterally on this discussion because I know you have championed reverse mentoring and multi-generational collaboration a lot in the past. And when I think about operating and behaving from a place of abundance and thinking about AI as well, a trust is not necessarily automatic across age and experience levels. I think we chatted about this a little bit before behind the scenes. But how can organizations actively build trust between digital natives and maybe more seasoned professionals who are not digital natives so that innovation feels shared and not siloed?
Yeah, I mean, very, very interesting question, very valuable in today's context, and this whole notion of multi-generational workforce. Couple of things I'll say. Firstly, um, why should we have, let's call it a Gen Z advisory board? Why should we have a Gen Z advisory board? The reason is they're actually in the trenches, and they're exposed to technology outside of the corporate realm. So corporations are typically going to lag consumer AI, and consumer AI is going where there's maximum demand, and the maximum demand is from younger generations. So we are seeing very interesting applications in that space, and your Gen Z advisory board can coach you on that. One of the examples is there's a dating app called Snack, and within Snack, you can have your digital twin go on a date with your counterparty's digital twin
Oh, wow.
and then come back with feedback. Now, I would never know about this for were it not for my Gen Z advisory board. Once we know about this, now we can say, hey, how do we use this in the context of corporations? So instead of Christina trying to figure out if she wants to work with XYZ company or project manager, maybe their digital twins go off on a hypothetical project and then give them feedback, right? So this is one way in which you could take some of the inputs from your Gen Z advisory board. We have upcoming session within our team where three folks from our team, I won't name them, but younger folks from our team who are going to be presenting how they are using AI within the realm of our work. And some of the ways in which they've used AI are surprising, even to folks who might be experts. So it's always valuable to have that. The second thing I'll say is that this is not just about young people. It is about young mindset. or the ability to be flexible in your thinking and neuroplastic in how you approach these technologies. So one of my collaborators on all things AI and future of work within JLL is Peter Miskovich, who's a 40-year industry veteran, and he's seen multiple recessions. He's seen hype cycles. He's experienced new technologies come and go. So he brings that wealth of knowledge, but he's very neuroplastic, and the ability for us to collaborate has been extremely valuable. So I would say generations working together, extremely valuable.
So let me ask this question, because I think you had said in one of your articles, 84% of CEOs know that their employees are using unauthorized AI, whether it's ChatGPT. And I do know quite a few, like my niece and another friend's child, not child, they're like in their 30s, are being assigned in their companies to develop an internal AI tool so that they're not going to ChatGPT and not using unauthorized tools. In order to kind of move forward and know that your employees are using the technology, are using the AI, you want them to innovate. How do you manage what's authorized and not authorized, and the shadow AI as you talk about it? How do you manage to that, and how do you trust or not trust what an employee is giving you or what your team member is giving you in terms of where it comes from, or how do you even know? So how does all that play out? That's kind of confusing, and I think a big gray area.
Yeah. This is one of those prime examples, Susan, where trust comes into the picture. So if we backtrack a little bit and examine what we mean by shadow AI, for those who are not familiar, organizations might have a whole range of systems that are whitelisted by their IT team, information technology team, infosec team, cybersec team. Those are vetted based on certain standards, requirements, regulatory practices, so on and so forth. If you, as an employee of such an organization, are using systems in the corporate context outside of what is approved, then you're in this shadow AI zone where you're using systems to deliver client objectives or outcomes using systems that are not whitelisted. So that's essentially what shadow AI. If you look at some of the surveys on this subject, a very large segment of the knowledge workforce right now is using shadow AI. And there could be a number of reasons for this. Like I said, consumer AI, consumer technology, forget AI for a second, consumer technology typically outpaces corporate adoption of technology. Variety of reasons here. Corporates need to do much more vetting before consumers can. Like, for example, say I use an iPhone right now and I want to switch to a Samsung Android phone. I can do it in 1 second. But if a corporation has contracts with a certain agency and they want to switch to a different agency, that may take months. There may be penalties associated with it. So there are a number of reasons why organizations can't act as quickly as individuals can. Surveys actually show that IT professionals are the highest violators of their own policies. Now, why is this? Is it that they don't want to follow the policy? No, it's they're actually experimenting. They are evaluating the systems. They are looking at systems outside of what's approved for the general population within the organization to understand if those systems can be trusted. And once they do that, become part of the fold. And I think organizations in the context of AI now, if we move into the context of AI capabilities are not doubling every 18 months. Colloquially, if you look at how these systems are evolving, the number of new launches, they seem to be evolving weekly, fortnightly, monthly. The pace is too fast for organizations to keep up. So you may need a small team, a skunk works or alpha team by whatever name called, who may be looking at systems outside of your own. And this is the only way in which you can test and understand. So I don't think shadow AI is a bad thing, so long as people understand how to use it safely. Don't put your credit card information, don't put your client information. We've had some cases where There's been massive code leakages. You need to understand how to use these systems appropriately in the context of your own org. If you can do that, and you maintain sanctity, I don't see it as a negative. Um, and I think there should be some selection process to get onto that alpha team, skunkworks team. This allows people who are curious and want to explore to exercise that muscle in the positive vector aligned with enterprise objectives. I'll pause there. I hope I answered the question, Susan.
Yeah, so that was a lot to unpack. Let me see if I got it, because I think this is really, really an important message. I, as your employee or team member, am a consumer on the outside of AI, and it's moving at the speed of light. It's moving fast. I'm encountering it, and my expectation is that I'm able to take what I'm learning and take what I'm experiencing into my work. Work, on the other hand, has a much slower pace, and they're used to change over years or a year. And so you've got me wanting an immediate gratification. I have to deliver an outcome. I know I can just type this in. I know I can get ideas. I don't have to wait. And I've got the corporation saying, whoa, wait a second. There are all kinds of risks involved in that. We don't want to let our data out. We have to use sanctioned or approved AI tools. And unless you actively put a team together to constantly vet what's new, because AI tools are being developed and they're out in the market weekly and daily and monthly, not years. Unless we stay on top of that and bring that into the employee to use as they are used to, then you're going to have a little bit of a conflict between what the employee is doing and what the corporation is doing. And then you have to manage that, and you have to be somewhat okay with it. Talk a little bit about, what do I do now with that?
Yeah, I mean, this could be a 1 hour discussion, but very, very briefly, the way I look at this is leading practice in this context with corporations, companies that we work with. There is no permanent blacklist. This is an evaluation process, and your systems that may be blacklisted today might become whitelisted in the future. So what is shadow AI today might be regular AI in the future. So every company holds that card, right? And this is a process of evolution. So as a corporate employee, I live in superposition all the time, because I will be asked questions on topics that are outside of the organizational sandbox. So I'm in superposition. I need to evaluate systems that are outside the sandbox. At the same time, I need to understand what I can use for my day-to-day work. So how do I do this? Is I literally every day I go to the website that was whitelisted or blacklisted and check if they are still whitelisted or blacklisted. And that changes. It changes over time. And then secondly, if I speak to JLL as a JLL employee, uh, JLL has been really quick in terms of adopting some of these technologies. We have done a lot of vetting. I like to say it's a overnight success that took decades. But there's enough organizational muscle memory to evaluate these systems quickly and then bring them into production reasonably quickly. So, for example, with JLL GPT, now we have multiple foundational models. So we have Chat GPT, we have Claude, we have Gemini, we have multiple foundational models. So users can select. There's agentic AI pilots that are happening at the moment. So there's a number of ideas that we are exploring. So the adoption cycle is also improving and accelerating. So patience for our corporate users is something that I would suggest. But at the same time, don't stop exploring these systems, right? There may be some things which are outside of the organizational boundary right now, but nothing stops you from exploring it in your personal context, learning about it, testing it out. But like I said, don't put your credit card information on there.
Right.
Don't put corporate confidential information on there, and so on.
And Chris, I know you have a question, but let me just follow up with just one thing that came to me as I was listening to you just now. What you asked us, so you've got your employees now testing, and you're testing, and you've got a vetted list. When we started today, you asked us if we use ChatGPT to write your intro. So as a leader, is it okay for me to ask my team member or my team or my employee, did this come from ChatGPT? And is it really okay for the employee to say yes or no, or am I going to be scared of being like getting in trouble, or like what's the new rule? What are the rules of engagement now, and what can we ask? What can't we ask? What do we need to be afraid of or not afraid of as we move forward?
Yeah, a quick answer on that, and then, or let me put it this way: I'll give you my limbic response on that, and then I'll give you my cognitive response. So my limbic response is, I assume you're using ChatGPT. I assume
Okay.
you're using AI to write this response. Um, but then I need to go into system two thinking or cognitive thinking, and I need to ask if I'm, say, in the context of an email, I'm using AI to write an email, to use Susan, who uses AI to summarize that email. And then Susan uses AI to write the email and sends it to me. Then I use AI. So then, do we really need that email? Is it a question of using AI, or is it a question of reimagining the workflow? Do we need more rewiring of processes and thinking? So that's where my mind goes to. It's less about should somebody use AI or no. My assumption is that you are using AI.
Okay.
And then if we think about where we are, I know we were briefly chatting about this. Most people in the workforce are aware of kind of the instruction model. You give it a question, it gives you a response. So ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Llama, many others. But we are not there. We are like three steps beyond that as of now. As of today, we've gone from that basic instruction model to reasoning models like O1 or DeepSeek R1. So the difference is the reasoning model thinks before it responds, and you can actually see the thought process. You've gone from there to co-pilots, which have some context. Like for example, your Microsoft Copilot is an example, which has Microsoft Graph context. And then beyond that, you have agents. Agents can execute tasks on your behalf on a spectrum of autonomy. Public example is like Manus, or you might have Agent AI from HubSpot, or Agent Force from Salesforce. So on. These are all agentic platforms. So we are right now in agentic platform domain. So my assumption is that if there's a work process, if it is reasonably predictable, I'm using some kind of automation. That's my working assumption. If we are not, is there opportunity to do that? And I think it's not a question of replacing human being or human process with an AI process. Is actually magnifying the value of the human involvement. So if you're actually involved in a process, why should you be involved? And what's the maximum value that I can extract from the human involvement in the process? That's where I think we should focus our energies. The AI stuff will take care of itself. And over time, this becomes like Word, Excel, or PowerPoint. I don't ask somebody, did you add these numbers in Excel? Or I hope you did that by hand the hard way. No one's asking that.
Well, and maybe the question is, once you say yes, once you realize that everybody's using it, so what are you going to do with this? So tell me what you think about this and what we do with this,
Yes.
which is not necessarily the AI piece.
Yes. And I've shared this example previously as well. My 74-year-old mother is an educator. She's a double PhD, history and French. She continues to teach, and the way she teaches has changed. She uses Chat GPT all the time, and instead of telling a student to write an essay, now she asks them to generate A, B, and C grade essays using AI models, and then simply asks them to evaluate why a certain essay gets an A or a B. So you're trying to magnify the critical thinking of the student. I think the same applies for organizational context as well. The AI might give you an output, but we need to understand that the AI does not understand. You do.
Right.
So what understanding, what context, what personal experience, what authenticity are you bringing in? Maybe it's one sentence, maybe it's three words, maybe it's a tone, maybe it's something intangible that you bring to that conversation, and that creates tremendous value.
And when you're all honest about it and you're talking about, yes, I got this out of ChatGPT or Gemini or something, and now this is what I'm going to do with it, that builds trust, because now all the cards are on the table. Everybody's being transparent. Nobody's trying to, nobody's trying to make wrong assumptions. Nobody's making wrong assumptions. So I love that. And that totally ties back to trust.
Yeah, and my assumption, like I said, is that you should be using AI
Yeah.
because each one of us have biases, right? And we can use the AI to test your bias. You can write something up, like I do this all the time. I'll write a top on a topic, and then I'll ask an AI model, what are the blind spots in this? What
Mm,
have I not said? What
Wow.
remains unaddressed? And I don't necessarily change my content. I may edit one or two words, I may add a sentence here and there, but it's my tone of voice and it's my style. It's what I pick from what the AI says, but it helps me be more rounded.
yeah. Wow. There's something that I want to go back to humanity and that level of authenticity that you're talking about, like still your tone, still your voice, still your style. Um, so it just reminded me when you were speaking about your mother, who's an educator. So every year I speak at Pratt Institute for a leadership symposium. And what surprises me every year is the questions that I get from the students are nothing to do with the theory of what I was there to talk about or tech or knowledge management system, nothing, transformation, none of that. What they're interested in is how do I build relationships in the workplace? And I find that year after year incredibly insightful because it just goes to show that the younger population, then it's not about the theory. The theory and the knowledge exists. It's abundant. It's about that next level. It's about building those relationships. It's about showing up with authenticity. So my question for you is, can AI help us also build that authenticity? And what recommendation would you give to students entering the workforce with no previous work history?
Yeah. Um, I think it's a great question and connects the dots, Christina, with a number of topics that we have discussed. So, trust is the anti-rust of relationships. And the way one of the ideas that we have as a JLL leadership team we talk about is assume positive intent. And what I would add to that is give without an expectation of return. And the moment you do that, it's like that balloon example, right? Where I found Susan's name on a balloon. I'm simply going to Susan, giving Susan her balloon. And now Susan pays it forward. And so long as you do that, I think everyone benefits. And the more giving you have, the more you benefit. Building relationships is as simple as that. If you look at uh, the the folks who are super networkers, super relationship builders, that's what they have in common. They give without an expectation of getting in return.
Yeah, that's incredibly special, and I agree with that. It's this abundance mindset that can also be learned. You were talking about neuroplasticity earlier, and the ability for the brain to adapt and change itself through your life. You're never too old to learn a new trick,
Yes.
and by learning about AI and adopting AI, you're really adopting this growth mindset. Would you say that's right?
Yes, 100%. Your muscle does not know how old you are, and the brain is a muscle. So exercise it and it'll grow.
Love that. Love that.
I don't know. Can we just tell my husband that you can always learn a new trick? Since I just tried to connect his computer to the YouTube channel last night, and it's a big deal. Like, I don't think his muscle can learn this new trick. Just saying. But I am
I
going to
have
say
faith
that
in
the
Mark.
experts, yeah, I'll just say that the experts here I'll tell him that can happen, and that he just needs to be open to the possibilities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I I am curious though. I think there's an important topic that has been renamed in the work force, but ultimately the values that underlie the acronyms still matter when it comes to humanity, when it comes to belonging, when it comes to, genuine care and just treating people with respect. Um, is AI mature enough to identify, or I think you were talking about, PhDs, it's incredibly smart. Can you tell us at the level that AI is today, and if there are those gaps in historical context that might be impeding, truly inclusive knowledge?
Yeah, we were discussing this, Christina, before this call, and for context for folks who are tuning in, AI now is at around 130 IQ. So just as over the last 18 months or so, Claude 3.0 and 3.1, these models were at around 100 IQ, 101 IQ. Average human IQ is 100, standard deviation of 20, PhD IQ level is 130. O3, OpenAI's latest model, Gemini 2.4, 2.5 Pro, and the related models are at 130 plus IQ. That's Mensa level. That's higher IQ than 98% of humans. Uh, now, this is intelligence. It's not wisdom. And the joke version of this is knowing that a tomato is a fruit is intelligence, but not putting it in a fruit salad is wisdom. So does the AI know that tomato does not go in fruit salad? So this is where I think we are at. We have very precisely magnified a very small aspect of humanity, which is intelligence. Has wisdom kept pace is a question, and my view is that human wisdom should outpace artificial intelligence. And as that
I love
happens,
that.
I think we'll have more powerful outcomes with any new technology. These technologies are tools, and in the hands of a wise person, you will have beneficial outcomes.
Mm, I love that. And we hope that the tools are in the hands of wise humans who are inclusive, who are, looking out for the betterment of humanity, because it's agenda agnostic. AI has so much potential, and I'm really looking forward to how we continue to evolve as humans,
Yes.
um, how we continue to kind of focus as well a little bit more on our human skills.
Yeah, it is fashionable to say one is a techno optimist. One should also be a humanity optimist. We just said assume positive intent. We should
Hmm.
assume positive intent with AI implementation as well. And this is not to say that one needs to be delusional.
Hmm.
Definitely verify. And Susan, we were discussing this, right? Trust because you can verify.
Yes.
Not
Mm,
just trust before you verify, trust because you can verify. And so long as corporations, so long as holders of some of these technologies can bring that trust forward, I think it'll help us and liberate us from any of these issues that we face. I would also say that uh, optimism and optimists uh, outlive the alternate variety, which is pessimism and pessimists, by 15 percentage points.
wow.
So
Wow.
it is in your own benefit to be an optimist. Optimists change
Wow.
the world and also live longer.
Probably minimizes or lowers your stress level when you're an optimist, right?
Yes.
So physically, I get that on every
Yeah.
level. Yeah,
And
that's,
every day is joyful then,
yeah.
right? Even if the pessimist is right, how was their day? Did they feel good?
No,
Yeah,
never.
no, not a chance.
Never, never. There's this really great quote. I think Albert Einstein, uh, there are only two ways to live. One way is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other is as though everything is a miracle. And what I love about this discussion is that we're talking about something that maybe we never really imagined would get there with AI. It is incredible. Um, but the other thing we're talking about and we're really standing for is building trust. And I do think that as long as we continue to focus on developing trust, whether it's as we're adopting AI, interacting with other people, building our leadership muscles, we are going to continue to grow and progress, and it does give us a little bit more optimism in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Are we calling for Chief Trust Officer now, Cristina, on this podcast?
Oh, I like that.
Chief Trust Officer. I'm down. Hey, absolutely.
Even I might go back into a corporation for that. I like it.
Absolutely.
So
Look, the return on trust is huge. And as long as we
Yeah.
keep it center of what we do, I think we're going to really succeed. Susan, I know you've got some closing comments.
Yeah, so I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and for those who could not make it, and you're watching it on the record, we really appreciate you you coming today. I do want to know that we do continue this conversation on Trustworthy Live every week. It's usually on Tuesdays. Sign up for our YouTube channel. It's been put. The link is in the chat, and then you'll get notifications. Also, we have our Trustworthy LinkedIn page. We have this conversation regularly about all different aspects. I believe our next guest is going to be on May 1st. And Chris, you want to talk a little bit about our next guest?
Sure. So on May 1st, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern, we'll be speaking with Cristina McHugh about trust in the supply chain. And I know it's a hot topic right now as well. So please join us. If you follow us on LinkedIn, you'll get the reminders and the notification. I guess the other thing is we also host Trustworthy Labs. So once a month on a Tuesday, we will host an open forum conversation, completely complimentary. It's free. And we meet with leaders from around the world just to talk about the topic of trust. And our mission is to equip you with some data, some information, so that you could go and plant the seeds in your organizations and start to have those conversations. Sorry, Susan, jump in.
No, that's okay. The next lab is May 13th from 10 to 11 Eastern time. And if you want to come and unpack how to build trust in a world that is right now seemingly in flux, between the markets, between layoffs, between the politics, between AI, there's so many things going on right now. How do you show up? Because we all still need to do our jobs. We all still need to deliver, and we all still need to be human and connect from the heart. So how do we use trust in order to build that foundation? Ram, it was such a pleasure. I learned, like, my head is going crazy with everything I learned today. Thank you for your time, and thank you for inspiring me to use ChatGPT even more, and to play with all other technologies and to be okay with it.
Thank you. Thanks, Susan. Thanks, Cristina. And thank you for everyone who tuned in and listened for almost an hour here. Thank you.
We really appreciate you, Ram. And I say I am very blessed that I get to work with you every day as well. If anyone would like to get in contact with Ram, you can find him on LinkedIn. I've added his LinkedIn and his website to the chat at the top. And feel free to join the conversation and reach out. Thank you, Ram.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.